Chapter 1. Victoria Frankenstein. The Frankenstein name was one of opulence and whispered envy, as excess set them apart from even the highest royal courts. Amid November's autumn, the year of 1805, while the high society of England revelled in sumptuous balls, exquisite theatres and endless libations, the Mount Olympus spectre of the Frankenstein lineage had become a ghost story. They wield a status that their wealth provides. Voices shudder when they rumour the Frankenstein name in whispers to both the wives and their title-holding husbands. The rumour mill of wealthy families, who are safe to roam the corridors within their warm manors and city homes. The young to grow plump with meals their mothers never cook them and shop of new attire regularly to wear the finest clothes that they can afford a tailor to seam for them. It cannot be denied that these people are living comfortably while enjoying the splendours of the world. With loyal subjects to handle mundane everyday tasks, it frees up their time to find leisure, to enjoy the arts, to taste the abundance of food served freely and actively attend parties and weddings. Yet in these crowds of crystal cups and silk dresses there is no Frankenstein, nor are they found in quiet corners or private dinners, not within the lecture halls or university classrooms. England has not seen a Frankenstein amidst its streets in 18 years. Far from society in the southwest of Germany, bordering France, the Frankenstein castle resides. A Schloss castle with 7 stories looms mountainous on a rock in the middle of a massive lake, complete with flying buttresses, countless towers, domes and wings. A truly visionary love letter to Gothic architecture, a mighty landmark for the Frankenstein symbol of status. Thick forest and wild mountain range lay on the opposite side of the lake from the castle, resembling an oil painting of yellows and hazel hues, where the green of spring is dying. As the evening makes its comfortable arrival, the castle lives silently with emptiness, without a soul to see the setting sun pass through its hundreds of windows. No maids, no cooks, no loyal servants have roamed these halls in some weeks, and the quiet that rests on the walls is one shrouded in mourning. An abandoned graveyard of bouquets can be found in the ballroom, their dried up and withered corpses gone unloved. Piles of melted candles can be seen crowding the corners of a few rooms. The stillness of time throughout the castle, black fabric draped across portraits, mirrors, and scattered furniture, has left nothing more than the solemn silence of a once illustrious home. As the dawn is snuffed out by a starless night sky, a woman of 44 with black hair sleeps peacefully against a frost-smudged window pane. She rests on an icy-cushioned window nook. Her fair, almost ageless face relaxes lightly, as if sheltered by dreams rather than the chill that crept in. Victoria Frankenstein awakes, her deep contemplative eyes open to survey her castle grounds in the throes of night. For a moment she is still and all is calm. Reflecting in her eyes is a crackle of lightning that scrapes across smoky black clouds. An electrical storm is rising. She then brings her legs off the nook and marches with a measured haste. She steps through corridors adorning hanging oil lamps that are not lit, paired with ornate patterns of callous shadows from floor to ceiling. In solitude, she murmurs to herself, not without a hint of irony, there is a clarity of thought few can claim. Her tone was not of resignation, but of burning resolve. She journeys to the other side of the castle, dressed not in the customary fall gown, but in finely tailored dark trousers, a crisp tweed vest, and a simple long cotton coat. Her statement to rebel in a world stifled by convention. Victoria moves with her dark hair loosely wafting behind her. Her measured steps lead her through corridors lined with dormant oil lamps and shadowy arches, each footfall echoing before reaching the master bedroom. What is meant to be a bedroom doubles as a library, where each wall is covered up by dark wood bookshelves, each one filled with red leather-bound journals in row after row. Each journal is guaranteed to be filled with her documentation and notes. There is a window that reaches from floor to ceiling, climbing a precise 25 feet. Aggressively she draws the curtains back on it. Living beside the window is a writing desk. The loyal tools of her workshop are loose parchment paper, a quill and ink, and a loop-handle candlestick holder, all neatly prepared on top of her desk. Before she can light the candle, a silent tide of light splashes the drafty room in a blink. A light explodes to life on the matchstick she uses to ignite the desk's candle. Adjusting the quill between her fingers, she eagerly sits down to a blank sheet of paper. In a moment she ponders how there is a razor judgment for a woman who has such wealth, and still makes no allegiances with the men who wish to grow their fortunes larger. To add to her position, she is alone in her ancestral home, which leaves many to speculate suspicions, especially in high society. Then what a rare and fortunate position I must be in. She thinks, a rare case of one such woman, to be alone with her thoughts and allowed to think unhindered, with the wealth to make actions of her ideas, monstrous ideas, Committed as any man, I am only because I live as the other. She starts writing with her ink-dipped quill in the weak glow of dying candle light. She sits at her desk assertively, writing every word with self-appointed discipline. She can smell stale musk when wetting the hemp parchment paper with every line of ink. Her black wavy hair falls to one side, resting on a shoulder. The music of rain hitting the glass of her windows can be heard coinciding with the quiet scratching sound her quill makes when writing. She writes, I, Victoria Frankenstein, on this the year 1805, November the 5th, believe it is of the utmost importance to journal additional details before I conduct my experiment in any case of misfortune throughout. I have, for 22 years, researched rare cases of a disease. From these cases I have taken blood from men and women for further studies. The sample's origins. Egypt, the year 1783. A man with this disease was mummified. The disease allowed him to survive thousands of years in dormant, as long as his organs remained removed from his body. He was the most powerful of all cases I have ever encountered. His blood, immortal. I expand on this case in further detail in my journal labeled King of the Dead. Point Pleasant, the Americas, the year 1784. This case is still shrouded in grand mystery. Blood was obtained from a massive creature that was black and winged with red eyes. I have documented this encounter in further detail in my journal labeled Point Pleasant. Gévaudan, France, the year 1785. A woman who was relieved of ailments or any harm by her disease also would suffer to a frontal lobe takeover, while her body underwent a flooding of hormones of both estrogen and testosterone and adrenaline in the night of full moons. I expand on this case in my journal labeled Beast of Gévaudan. Lastly, I have obtained blood from my love of 19 years, Voivode. He is a man truly cursed with every purposeful enrichment of the phrase. There is a tremendous amount of similarities his version of this disease shares with a variety of illnesses. His pale complexion could define him as having the white plague, but he shares no other symptom, and defies the end result of the disease, which is death. A sensitivity to sunlight is a common connection to rabies. In Voivode's case, it is more than a hindrance. It whittles his body, destroys his flesh, and rumples him into a charred living carcass. Porphyria causes a hypersensitivity to light as well, but never to a damaging extreme such as he experiences. There must be an ingestion of blood if he is ever to be damaged by the sun in order to recover. Therefore, an absence of the need for blood is his general everyday living. In spite of these factors, Voivode is immortal. I expand further on his case in my journals, The Son of the Dragon. All 4 cases are like any disease with damning drawbacks, but in all 4 cases there is a profoundly rare healing factor that I hope and dream I can enable in dead human tissue. I am far from understanding how this blood and disease truly functions, and if there is any such way to manipulate it, but if I could, it would mean an advancement in medicine that would give the recently deceased a second chance at life. A cure to child illnesses, possibly those such as measles. The potential is there for bettering the well-being of all human life. There is no fathom to limitless progress humanity can propel to. The death of the young who potentially hold answers and keys to creating a utopian future can be given a second chance to gift us with their imagination. Less creativity and love will be lost, so we all can rise higher as the human collective. No mother will have to lose their child again. Evidently, no child will have to lose their mother to have life. My motivation overflows with a terrible exuberance in my every waking day. To see success in a 1 in a trillion probability would mean more than changing the world, more than the advancements of medicine, and more than a bright and bold future. In truth, what is most important to me is that it would mean I would get back the heart I lost in this world, the love in me this world extinguished. It is with tremendous shame and dismay that I must disclose a wretched confession. In the past day I have grave robbed the body of a Matthews Hull, who has passed in the last week. He met his demise in an accident as he came to collapse under a windmill's water wheel. He suffered cranial damage in the back and top of his skull, destroying his brain. I transplanted into him a brain and eyes. I have surgically implanted 4 electricity conduits into the body, 2 on either side of the torso. I have also combined the blood of all 4 previously mentioned cases. The result was a biological lumination that I believe is 2 chemicals that I have known to be common in sea life was present in 2 separate collections of blood, with only enough to fill 2 vials after mixing. I will be injecting 1 full vial into the body while it lay in a vat of water. Soon after, I will engage an electrical current from a battery that will be connected to the 4 electricity conduits in the torso. allowing for electricity to course through the body. To further explain, in the year 1796, I began funding the experiments of Alessandro Volta. He is an Italian physicist that was working to invent a machine that will produce electricity over a long period of time, steadily. I take no credit for his work, having only been present for his experiments 8 or so visits in under 10 years. When he finally invented the voltaic pile in the year 1799, we worked together in secret to create a version of the voltaic pile that produced 100-200 watts instead of 1-2 watts, which is what his invention initially supplied. We eventually became successful, and I possess such one machine that I have named the box. I will use it to produce a steady current of electricity into the body through the electricity conduits in the torso for over the course of 6 hours. The hope is that the end result will be the aforementioned disease in the combined vials of blood will take hold of the cells while they are surging with a steady current of electricity, allowing for the cells to adopt the disease's regenerative affects and heal the dead cells back to life. If there is no problematic occurrences and I am without harm, I shall return to record my findings. This concludes my record. Placing the quill beside the ink jar, Victoria turns to get up from the desk, but halfway up she stops herself, and a hurt current on the love of her heart now runs through her, drenching her eyes in longing. Gently she sits back down. Her hand resting on the desk, calmly drifts over to pick up the quill once again. Her eyes gloss with sentiment as the point of the quill starts a new page. She writes, "I said goodbye to my love today." I watched from my windows as his charcoal black horses took his carriage through the castle gates. I stared with painful concentration, hoping I could somehow see through the charter's black painted windows and maybe catch a glimpse of him once more. I watched him leave. Though I am not unfamiliar with the sight, it does not make it any less difficult. I stayed long after he was gone when the sun peeked over the horizon. I looked on till I fell asleep against the pane. The wind is whispering through the high windows as Victoria allows herself a moment of vulnerable introspection before resuming her resolute penmanship. Every diligent stroke of her quill is a confession of the heart. Under the blinding pulse of lightning flashes, she is not distracted. His travels will take him far from me. Though it is nothing I wouldn't expect, for the legacy he is building is far greater than any fictional giant. I also think about my legacy. I wonder what the world will write of me 200 years from now. I know they will tell of how I advanced mankind with such unmatched haste. Children will idolize me as the hero they strive to someday be. I will lay here in my bed tonight and I will not cry for what I have lost. I will not cry for the absence of my love. My father, the glorious man that he was, always said death follows Frankensteins. So I say let him follow, for I will never slow, I will never halt. Every inch of my being until my last breath will constantly strive to fulfill my dreams. I will get back to my heaven. I will get back my life. As I doze off, I will be imagining what history will write of me, as someday they will erect a monument in my likeness as a memorial of my achievements. Dr. Victoria Frankenstein, the angel of life. I dream, so often it becomes a wool over my eyes. A facade of mountains built with delusions of grandeur that when it fades a dull, colourless perspective remains. The tightening of a noose can be felt then, around my neck, and I shed stinging forced tears. I dream, and I dream because I carry with me a moratorium. Inside it holds the tomb of my mother, whom I have never known, for she passed shortly after I was born. The child I lost while still in my womb. The tomb of my father, who perished in Egypt the winter of the year 1783. A lifetime of lovers who came years before my current companion, Voivode, are all but corpses now. I dream because they cannot. I dream because if they could still be here, they would want me to dream. For them, I keep my dreams protected in a chamber I keep near my heart. Impenetrable and invulnerable to corruption, and never in need of the sustenance of glory or ego. It was my grief of being followed by loss that I desired to spite death themselves. The beauty of my memories has tarnished, therefore, thy moral boundaries I have crossed to see the happiest part of my life return to me mustn't be to no avail. This will be a home again. Victoria gets up from her desk to then dress down. She collects the recently written pages and closes them inside a red leather-bound journal, putting a flattened white lotus flower in the back of the pages before closing it. Only wearing her undergarments, she walks with haste across the castle to the Burgfried. Defined as the tallest tower in the castle, and usually reserved to be constructed in the middle of an architecture, is found instead at the back of the Frankenstein castle. She enters a chamber designed to be mercilessly clean. 4 basins weighted against the wall. She methodically works from fingertip to elbow, scrubbing and rinsing twice until the skin strung and the water ran grey with yesterday's oils. She dresses with economical ceremony. A second set of tailored undergarments cut like a man's, then heavy rubber overalls. Over that she drew a long white coat. Doctor's lines, subtly altered to the slope of her shoulders. A hair cover snaps into place, a surgical mask hides the lower plane of her face, and she slides black rubber gloves up past her elbows until only whiteness and the small dark oval of her eyes remain. Journal tucked beneath her arm, she passes through the outer door, each step calculated as if leaving behind herself and stepping into her work. The large body of a corpse lies under a white sheet on a metal table that is hanging off the ground by 5 feet. In the darkness, light flashes from the heedless dancing of lightning, preceded with thunder sending a tremble through the Frankenstein castle. The strobes of light fill the room till Victoria enters, and she begins to flip switches on a board that is in direct control of an electrical source that brings to life bulbs beaming with illumination in every corner of the room's darkness. The technology in this room alone isn't just made up of prototypes, but the newest inventions from all over the world that only one with the means to find them, and the wealth to obtain them, could have. This laboratory mirrors the previous sanitary room with the scale expanded. There is a frightening coldness to the white cleanliness of the floors and walls. Alarming even, to see a room devoid of artistry and expression. With clear surfaces and finely cut edges, like stepping out of time, into a room that is abundantly designed for clean medical treatment, further setting it out of place. Victoria takes every step with purpose as well as every movement of her hands, led with a predetermined plan. Operating with a choreography practiced in the playground of her thoughts 1,000 times over. She primes the syringe until it hums with a milky blue light, a small captive dawn in glass. Behind her, the box wakes with a dry, electric crackle like distant ice shifting. Beneath the iron slab where the great shape of the man lies is a basin deep enough to swallow the table whole. Victoria moves with a choreography. Soon her fingers find the faucet and twist. The pipes moan as the tub fills. She cuts the flow, then eases the table down until metal meets water with a dull, obedient groan. Leaning over the pool, she peels the sheet back, pausing to stare at them. She lays the cloth back over him but does not hurry. Her pause is not mercy so much as an appraisal, a final reading of the man she will make. Outside, the storm begins its sermon. Lightning knifes the sky, thunder answers like a dropped anvil. Each flash etches the ceiling window, each boom makes the lab feel smaller. Victoria looks up once, then covers the face completely. She speaks to herself aloud while staring out the window in the ceiling. Like the mysteries of what electricity is, so is the uncertainty or truth to the extent of which we can control life and death. We can see it, make use of it, feel storms of the heart and try to capture it in words. But there is no maker of magic or nature. We do in action to undo its mysteries and make less fear of the unknown. Through the castle gates, across the limestone bridge and down a twisty road, there resides the gates of an old medieval Bavarian town down the hill. Little rain from the storm has happened upon its ensemble of colourful half-timbered houses. The autumn breeze carries bright foliage through the winding narrow alleys. The town's people are made up of women wearing high-waist gowns with long muslin skirts and men in dim or dark-coloured breeches, with some in long, loose and coarse overcoats, and others in tweed vests and jackets. They come out of their homes and crowd the twisty cobblestone streets. The lightning's voltage can be heard coming from the thunderstorm over the Frankenstein castle. Between every explosion of thunder, a wave of fear courses through the town's people, resulting in shutters slamming shut on the flowers that pour over window boxes, while the crowd that is growing outside collectively gasp and clutch their chests. The town is wrought with hanging street signs that start to violently sway with unwanted screeches of iron. He pushes out of the press of bodies like a knuckle through cloth, wet lederhosen clinging to his thighs, leather boots sluicing mud with each step. Sweat plasters his hair to a forehead set in a scowl that looks carved. In one hand he bears a torch, its sputtering flame a stubborn heart against the bustling winds. Moving through the crowd, he raises the light high. His voice cuts the wind, sharp, sudden roar, sending a jagged sound that accosts people at their spine. Heads turn, silence thinning to a wire, the torches glow light up faces and fear as he screams, "The devil is in our community." Victoria Frankenstein commits acts of heresy. As we all stand by, we allow that heretical perversity to grow in the land of our Lord. Exodus 22:18, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." She is the last of her lineage. She is alone inside the Frankenstein castle. For years she has been behind those walls, dwelling, hiding a secrecy of her life. Under the guidance and protection of God, I have suspected her of witchcraft. She must be persecuted. his final words hoarse with venom. A wave of gasps passes over the town's people. Turn away not now, for the works of evil are at hand. Turn away not, and see before you now the proof. See before you with your eyes the truth. If Victoria is left unimpeded, who knows how strong her companionship with the devil will get? It is up to us to destroy her evil and the evil of her allegiance with the devil. An older man with a grey fretted beard screams from the back of the crowd. What acts of heresy do you submit Victoria has done? The town crier swings his lanky body around with his torch and screams back without hesitation. We have all bared witness to the carriage, the one that blends in the darkness of night. The devil himself comes to the witch, Frankenstein, to bestow his bidding onto her. He has finally instructed her to do the most unspeakable. She grave robbed the body of Matthie's Hull. His funeral was not but 6 days ago. I had come in from fishing last midnight to see her hauling his body. Tonight I dug up his grave and my suspicions were confirmed. There lie no man but an empty coffin. These eyes, he drives his pointer finger into the center of his chest aggressively. My eyes are of the son of a witch hunter, a child of God. My bloodline can be followed back to that of a crusader. There is no lie I wish to speak. He points to a gaunt young woman with similar features to his own. That is my sister. Then he points to a rigid-looking man with wrinkles that betray his age, and my brother. He continues to gesture to various people in the crowd. My family founded this town generations ago, leading us all into God's gentle light. His brows furrow as he looks onward. That storm lay overtop her castle, because it is with her that God is angered, and we must rise now, lest we all perish to a witch's will. In the laboratory, Victoria drives the needle of a syringe between the corpse's ribs, and the baby blue starlight glow inside of it disappears. She reaches over, placing the syringe in Anar by copper pan, while the rest of her observes like gunpowder is being mixed, cautious of a dangerous reaction. There is one snake-like cable connected to the box. She drags it over, clamps 4 loose wires at the end of the cable to each of the 4 conduits in the corpse's torso. 4 chains are attached to each corner of the iron slab, disappear upward into the ceiling, part of a pulley that could lift the whole table. The hoist is bolted where the only skylight framed the storm. When Victoria clamps the box's cable to the 4 conduits in the body, a new current found its path. Near the ceiling, where chain meets hoist, iron rose on end as if prickled by static, and tiny shards and filings pricked the air. In the town below, a commotion brews where it took little effort for most of the town's people to be persuaded to persecute Victoria. Torches ignite in red glow as a group of them gather wielding pitchforks on their march out of town. Together they ascend up the twisty road and across the limestone bridge to the Frankenstein castle under icy downpour. The mob reaches the castle and attempts to set it ablaze. They find it difficult in torrent of rain, but continue to try as a group of men break off to use nearby lumber as a battering ram on the castle doors. Victoria cannot hear the banging over the deafening humming sound the box is making between the thunder that tears through the night. The townspeople of Mill Valley learn, slow and furious, that brute force will not undo the iron and oak of the doors. Rain scours their torches and made fire a joke. Frustration sharpens into invention. Lumber is dragged like a new limb, fitted into a crude ramp, and hauled against the slick flank of the castle wall where a window resides high and out of reach. Men swear and slip. One, smaller and wiry as a ferret, keeps finding purchase where others cannot. He climbs with the hunger of someone who has nothing left to lose. In his fist a palm-sized stone becomes a hammer. When he reaches the top he pummels the window until glass surrenders. Rain and shards go falling. For a beat he simply stands there, soaked, shaking, ridiculous with triumph, then slings the ramp through the jagged hole and drops down into the warmth of the hall, his boggling eyes taking in grandeur unfamiliar to him. Soon the double doors tear open. The mob pours in, carrying the damp, sputtering teeth of their torches. They fan through the rooms with animal hunger, ripping down curtains and upending chairs, pressing piles of fabric and broken wood to the cold stone, setting raging fires throughout. A cluster of men aim for the portrait of Victoria by the entrance, an affront, they say, to their fury. But it hangs stubbornly between stone pillars, 20 feet out of reach. They test ropes and simply throwing their torches at it. Still her portrait holds as strong and secure as Victoria herself. Frustration turns on itself, and they abandon the attempt, taking their indignation and destruction deeper into the castle. Inside of the laboratory, Victoria stands beside the box and watches a rod that protrudes from the top of the box's housing. The rod is 3 feet long with a sphere at the end. Here in this moment, as she waits patiently beside the box, gripping her journal on one side of her, She slowly peers over her laboratory from one side to the other, stopping on the giant corpse of a man that is hoisted in a tub. Here, she recognizes doubt in her ethics. After a moment of self-reflection, she speaks passionately aloud. Be my choice wrong, or with greater or harsher judgment than that of 350 years of illogical and unethical torture, and murder of all who perished under persecution of witchcraft? The world is covered in homes where the dead spirits stage life, scorched by fires used to burn those at the stake. Weary of innocent souls drained from the beauty of time. If I am to be found immoral, then my immorality sits at the distance of the moon from that of the practices of slavery, for there is no closeness in comparison. It is of the greatest immorality to say, give me your life agreed, or I shall take it by force, and with your life in my hands, I care not how it is fumbled or crushed, only that you provide your indentured servitude, with suffering or not, till you cannot be used to provide any more. My tampering of dead flesh and reanimation brings no pain, creates no harm, and cowers in comparison to the monstrously rudimentary practices of medicine, physicians and hospitals alike. She screams, listen to me now. If the forces at work truly disagree with my experiments, may Zeus himself ride down on bolts of lightning to punish me. It's then that she sees static electricity form around the sphere. Static freckles. Instinct snaps her hand to the lever and she flips it, an execution of fate. The cable took the charge with a hungry hiss. For a sliver of time she traces the current's journey and watches a pale serpent, uncoiling through copper, through the conduits, then spilling into the water with a silver scream. The charge did not die there. It slithers up the chains, slick and deliberate. Her eyes climb with it and hit the ceiling where the hoist, made of a fine steel, is fastened. A cold, alarming sense runs through Victoria that a mistake has escaped her, and there is a dangerous precedence in her oversight. The consequences are going to be unavoidable. They will bite back. The window above flares, a light so clean it strips colour from the bulbs and bleaches the room to new edges. Every hair along her arms bristle upright. The vibration of metals sing. Trays and syringes tugging to be free of gravity, hovering, spitting blue and white sparks that stitch the air. The laboratory stills beneath a thunder that hadn't yet arrived. A suspended second before catastrophe. Her mind, her Frankenstein mind, for as quick as it moves, she is made to feel the world waiting for what was on the other side of her choices. Her mistakes. Millions of miles away, in the darkness, empty space of unimaginable size, is home to a void outside of our galaxy. In the maddening orchestra of stars, a violent collision of a dwarf planet and a moon takes place. It is catastrophic devastation in the wake of these two celestial juggernauts colliding. The decomposition of organic matter releases blasts. The absolute annihilation sparks the conception of an energy. This energy makes a cosmic ray that is shot out into space as it is projected by a devastating shock wave the collision creates. This high-energy particle travels at super speed through space. It enters our galaxy. Eventually it enters our solar system. Unbeknownst to Victoria, she is about to experience a phenomena event and be the only person to see up close a lightning strike when combined with an impossible particle. A cosmic ray is traveling from extragalactic reaches of space, and it carries with it levels greater than exielectron volts, which is measured to be millions of times more energy than anything that humans can produce on Earth. It enters the atmosphere and intertwines with a lightning bolt. In milliseconds, that lightning bolt breaks through the window in the ceiling and rides down the chain hoist. It travels through the metal table, the corpse, the water, and into the cable. The large voltaic pile drinks the electrical current in and then, overwhelmed, betrays its hunger. With a white flash that sears the edges of vision and a sound like a cannon split in two, the box detonates, not a tidy burst but a wild unspooling of flame and wire. Electricity lancing the air in jagged tongues. Heat hammers the room. Victoria is thrown as if struck by invisible tides, her body slamming the floor in a stunned arc. Darkness folds over her eyelids briefly, with the strength of strong sedatives, while the lab convulses around the epicenter of its own making. Alarmingly she awakens, breathing in smoke, heat pressing at her ribs, the world tastes of ember. She inhales once and the smoke steals the breath back, coughing fury into her throat. Her hands grab at her ruined lab. Surfaces gone molten in places, instruments shattered and glittering in millions of pieces. Her fingers found glass and grit, then the familiar leather of her journal, warm and singed at the edges. She clutches it to her chest as if it were her heart almost lost to the disaster. Beyond the swirl of ash, she could just make out her experiment, half buried under the collapsed roof and ruined wiring. A pulse of helplessness hit her, for she knows that to cross that inferno now would be to trade everything for nothing. Time, the cruelest accomplice, accelerated. The flames climb with a greedy intelligence, consuming more and more. There was no time. She tried to imagine a way back, a path of wet cloths and courage, but the heat rose fast enough to blister thought. She forces herself up, each painful movement siphoning a bit more of her strength. The lab door lay open through the smoke. As the fire tyrannically burns to temperatures she cannot grapple with, she instinctively moves toward the door, boots wincing over scattered ash. At the threshold she pauses, one hand on the frame, the journal pressed to her breast, feeling the tug of everything left inside. All her work, a lifetime's quiet ambition to save those who are in the dark. For a breath that stretched like a held note she balances on the knife edge, the world narrowing to the choice she has to make. There is no other way to save her experiment and survive. She turns back, dropping her shoulders as she begins to cry. "Forgive me," she yells into the fire and smoke. "Forgive me," she yells through the tears. "Forgive me," she yells with heartbreak riding on the trembling decibels of her words. She runs through the halls of her castle, without questioning how the fires reach the other wings. An ever-unraveling disappointment of failure takes hold of her as she navigates to escape the burning castle. She ponders, is this where God has disowned me? Has he been here all along and I ignored the presents he took, so I may foolishly keep the dead I could not let go? Here I voyage from my deeds without God. My punishments could be as severe as hearing only noise in the grace of music, and I would wallow knowing I deserved it. Her sorrowing makes her fall ill as she continues onward down flights of stairs. She continues in thought, an arrow pulled back, and with my gidding hand it was shot. Shot with good intention and confidence in its success, but still only just the one arrow. Only one opportunity to hit the target. The brain, it was a person, there was a life there. Memories no one can have. Now they never will. The days where there were rain instead of sun, and the lungs were filled with petrichor. The warm meals with family, never a night alone or without a full stomach. The warming touch of sunlight on the eyes in spring. She pauses to weep, grabbing onto a door frame to hold her from falling while gripping her journal to her chest. She weeps uncontrollably as though she has never wept, as though she was attending a funeral. She presses forward as the flames follow her and push her out into the gardens. She keeps going, stumbling minimally as she continues in her provoked thoughts. Burden me, I wanted it, I wished for it and sought it out. Burden me with something to love, a child to give love and a purpose to never tire of. Burden me, I asked, I demanded, I am strong enough, I said. Remove my hand, burn me with frost, drown me in fire, and I will show you the meaning of loving and to love. Burden me. I will never tire. Death follows Frankenstein's. Now standing at the back of the castle gardens, she watches as all the castle windows spill over with flames. Is this God? She ponders. Is he ashamed, I ask, then he provided, and I could not live up to my self-anointed merit? Or was my oversight so horrendously epochal that no act of divine punishment was needed? Or was the hand that sews a puppeteer to my decisions? The fire has grown to be so big that the heat from the flames are too much for Victoria, that even standing at the back of the gardens is unbearable. Victoria takes to a stairwell that leads to a pier. She dashes to a rowboat at the end of the pier and climbs aboard frantically, setting her journal down in the boat and rowing out onto the lake. She cries as she rows, watching her ancestral castle burn down. A 300-year-old castle that took 200 years to build and only one Victoria Frankenstein to burn down. As she reaches the middle of the lake, she sees something escape the flames and emerge onto a balcony under a row of flying buttresses on the 7th story of the wing next to the laboratory. She stops rowing and stands in the boat. There is a massive figure silhouetted by the fires. She pauses in awe before celebrating accomplishment with a gasp and a jump. Alive, he's alive. But her celebration is short-lived when a few men arrive on the balcony. Victoria watches in confusion from the middle of the lake as the men proceed to attack her experiment mercilessly. Victoria is filled with horror already as she can only stand and watch when the tides turn. A silence smothers the world as the rain recedes and the clatter of thunder takes a pause when Victoria's creation explodes with power in retaliation, tearing 5 men apart. Her palm impulsively reaches out before her in shock. Her fingers are stretched apart and she can see her hand and arm silhouetted by the fire that engulfs her castle. Slivers of light can be seen emitting from the body of her massive creation, like a monster. The same mysterious light can barely be seen glowing from its eyes. A flood of questions and curiosities whirl like the winds on a tornado in Victoria's mind. In the moments as she watches, she asks herself, have I birthed a titan so unstoppable? Victoria tries to decipher what she can of her creation from its movement in the dark. She hones in on some of those thoughts in the hurricane of her mind. I imagine there is no world that finds itself safe from a creation such as this. 100 feet tall, immeasurable strength, and no limits to what more they are capable of. With the blood of all 4 subjects that I manipulated in an attempt to remove or reduce the drawbacks of the disease and combine them in a single body, there are 4 truths I foresee of my creation's biology. 1. There is no wound it cannot heal from, as their cells regenerate as fast as a breath. 2. Unbridled strength with muscle fibers that imitate the density of steel. 3. Mutation. There is not enough I could record in my years of research to understand why different individuals reacted in a unique way to the disease. But there was a pattern, and in 3 cases they had a mutation that made them deadlier. 4. It will be immune to illness, disease, starvation, and mortal wounds. It is immortal. I grow sicker within my bowels and breathing to the sheer imagining my own creation arriving before me. What misery I imbued on it. Is there pain it feels? Is pain a sense for it? How much pain have I caused it? For whatever the motivation may be, I cannot conceive that our meeting will be without a shared resemblance to the effortless removal of a man's entrails and dismantling of the human form in one smooth swinging motion. How dare I ask only now, was I wrong? How beautiful a creature, to curse the world like a form of art's opposite, plant a gaze on horror which unsettles the soul, but inflicts a towering fear to turn away. Like soldiers at war, 2 children in a uniform and placed on the battlefield to look each other in the eyes. Deter their eyes from the other could mean an opponent's opportunity to strike the killing blow of a blade entering the heart. They fear to turn away lest doom come for them. So is the fear my creation inflicts. I can feel the summer of my life begin to drain from my hair. A woman of 44 sees more in the lessening of ability than that of growing ambition. There now lies among the lost one's fearlessness to endure. Panic rises in her as more townspeople arrive to meet the horrors of her creation's rampage. She can feel that chamber near her heart that holds her dreams be crushed. The walls that hold up her dreamer's soul were before now unbowed and impossible to abandon. Now, they beckon to forfeit as those walls begin to crumble and collapse. Single-handed gore and bloodshed, like she's never seen, is spread across the balcony. She sinks into an ocean of emotions, disappearing further into a darkness that light and air fear from as she drowns in despair. There is no breath she could take that could breathe life back into her broken dreams. Lightning strikes, bursting in the sky like an orchestra for nature reaching crescendos, whenever the townspeople are split up the middle and cut down by Victoria's creation. From the middle of the lake, she stands in her rowboat under the dark of night while being pelted by the rain, looking on with terror into the flames. She feels the death of a part of her within, but also the birth of an unexplored era. The birth of dread.